Welcome back to the Flex Diet Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike T. Nelson. Where on this podcast, we talk about things to help increase and improve body composition, lean body mass, aka muscle, and performance, all without destroying your health in the process. Today, I'm super stoked to have my good buddy from Canada, Mr. Bryan Krahn, is on the program. And as always, this is brought to you by the Flex Diet Certification. Go to flexdiet.com, flexdiet.com, for all the information and to get on the wait list. That'll let you know the next time that it opens. And we'll also put you on to the newsletter where I've got a bunch of other great content, a lot of exclusive content that only goes out to the newsletter. And if you have direct questions and things you want to see on the podcast, the best way to find me is to just reply once you are on the newsletter. That's usually my first priority, other than paying clients to get back to that. Just allows me to kind of streamline everything too. So go to flexdiet.com, flexdiet.com, for a complete system on how to use nutrition and recovery methods for yourself, or especially if you're a coach or trainer. So flexdiet.com. So today, as I mentioned on the program, great trainer, a good buddy who I've known for a long time. He actually used to edit some of my articles when I did more writing for T-Mag, Testosterone Nation, which I might start doing again once I can free up a little bit more time. So Bryan Krahn, and we talk pretty wide-ranging spectrum of conversation here, from what's going on up in Canada where he lives, weather, to get into more training, what he does with his clients, some exercises that both of us like, and per the similar episode, I can check out the one I did with Ryan LeCure. We just start talking, and it was recorded. So it starts off a little bit slow and not necessarily related to fitness. So if you want to fast forward through that, it's up to you. But enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Mr. Bryan Krahn. Let's see, I see you, but I can't hear you.
There.
It's the internet in Canada. It's not working. It's frozen. It's blocked by all the truckers. I don't know.
Frozen is expensive. Yeah.
I only know that because I talked to a buddy from Canada last week. Otherwise, I know nothing that goes on in the world.
Yeah, they're protesting tyranny, man. There's tyranny everywhere. So yeah.
I heard it was getting kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a little bad because it's like they're nuts and their message is terrible, and they're, but at the heart of it, I like seeing protest. I like, and I like, because it reminds me of what we fought for, and all these people are like, throw them in jail. I'm like, no, you can't.
No.
So, or now what they're doing though is they're freezing their bank accounts.
Oh shit.
And people are like, fuck yeah, and I'm like, I don't. It's interesting though, because you try to throw that argument in there going, I don't think I'm cool with people. And they're like, well, you side with them. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And they're like, this isn't the Colombian cartel. These are a bunch of idiots.
Right.
Like, come on, man.
They're not trying to smuggle like truckloads of heroin into Canada.
Well, I know exactly. I mean, well, the boogaboo is it's a bunch of US money.
Oh, really? I didn't know that part.
Yeah, well, from like the super mega team. So anyway, but still, they should be freezing it. That's kind of like.
Yeah, that kind of freaks me out a little bit. But
yeah, I mean, at least you guys, you got that Second Amendment. You can solve that problem. But like,
yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, how you doing, man?
Good. It's probably a little warmer here than where you're at. I don't know. Do you convert to the F instead of the centigrade now up there, or you're still on the old metric system?
Yeah, we're still on that archaic metric system.
The one that everyone else uses except the US. It's so archaic.
So therefore it's wrong.
Right.
we've had the craziest winter, man. It's been like, now I gotta do the math. It's been like most way above freezing, like the 50s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then no snow.
No
But
snow. What happened?
well, that's the fucking thing. That's the thing about Alberta, my part of Alberta.
Yeah.
March, April, that's when Mother Nature lowers that hammer.
Mm,
So it's like right now everyone's like, oh, there's no snow. And I'm like, yeah, wait for it,
wait for it.
Yeah. So
Yeah. In Minnesota, I have this thing where we have snow now. We've had snow most of the winter. Not a lot, but
yeah.
I'm like, if it's going to be like 10 below Fahrenheit in the morning when I wake up without a wind chill, there sure as hell better be snow on the ground, because there's nothing worse than looking outside where it's just brown. And then if you get an overcast day, it just feels so depressing. Where luckily most of the time, like now, it's like super sunny and probably 12 degrees above zero. Yeah, it's a little bit cold, but when it's sunny out, it just doesn't seem that bad. When it's
Yeah.
brown and overcast, it feels horrible.
Well, and like, where I'm from in the prairies, man, it's the wind. That
It
changes
gets super
everything.
windy up there.
Oh, like, yeah, if you have a windy day, you can be, you can be fucking cold, but if there's no wind, you can like do stuff.
Yeah.
You can whatever. But as soon as there's a hint of wind, it's like, all right, we're out.
Yeah. When you have to go outside and wear a ski mask and goggles to go outside, that's a little inhumane, I think. That's where I draw the line.
I respect that. I don't know.
Uh,
Well, you do all this kiteboarding and shit, or whatever the hell.
yeah, you should go kiteboarding up there. You'd blow away. It's a 2-meter kite, you're good to go.
Well, no, I was kind of like thought you'd have moved your office, to the southern states.
Working on it. We were down there. We were down in South Padre, Texas for 6 weeks this past fall. So end of October through the first part of December. So it was pretty fun. We came back, went to the Dominican for a week, and then came back, was in Costa Rica. I got quarantined for 9 days in Costa Rica, extra on top of the 7 days.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was interesting, which isn't bad. Like being in Costa Rica, it was great. I love Costa Rica. It's awesome. But if I'm going to spend 9 extra days in Costa Rica on my own dime, I'd like to go somewhere other than my hotel. And the hotel was great, but at $200 a night, I could work somewhere else for a lot cheaper. And it was fine, nothing bad, but it was just odd.
Yeah, I mean, then, oh my God, imagine we were in Hawaii and for a week, and I was terrified. I go, if we get quarantined here, I got, we had a rate on the room, but I think their normal rate it's like $1,000 a night, something disgusting.
Oh,
like we did not pay that.
Yeah.
But like that's like what we would have to pay probably. But well, like when you're in quarantine, did you still have access to like the amenities? Like, could you go to the water and
that's what was so weird, because it all happened, and I talked about it on the podcast, and so I asked them, they're like, okay, you have to give us the hotel before we let you go, and we just throw you out of the Ebola tent and kick you in a cab and just take you wherever. And so I didn't know. I'm like, okay, I gave them the hotel we stayed at near the airport, because I'm like, I don't know any other hotels, and I'm thinking I need some place that has food, and that place normally has a gym. And so I told them that place, not knowing if I can get it for at that time I was supposed to be 2 weeks. And so okay, and I'm like, well, can I go out to get food, or like do I have to have like room service for like every meal? And they're like, no, you can go out and get food. I'm like, oh, so I can go to the hotel and get food? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, well, can I go outside for a walk? And they're like, well, yeah, that's okay. And I'm like, could I drive across the border to Nicaragua and take a flight out of there? And they got really mad at me. They're like, no, you're supposed to stay in your hotel. I was like, obviously there's a line somewhere, and I pushed it. So I don't know what was anything in between, but I got nervous. Like I didn't rent a car. I didn't go down to Ben House's place. I didn't go to anybody's place I knew, because I didn't know what the regulations were. I didn't want them to get in trouble, because I had to report where I was going to be at, and they're maybe not following some weird COVID rules. So I just stayed at the nicer, more expensive American hotel next to the airport.
Yeah, no, that's what I would have done. I mean, I know the rules are driving me nuts, because we did all our PCR tests, and everything's negative, and we get back here, and my kid's first day at his new school, bring him there, and he's all kind of nervous, and it went okay. And then when I pick him up, they're like, oh, we just heard that you were in Hawaii, so you have to continue. He has to quarantine for the remaining 10
Oh,
days. Yeah.
what?
Yeah. I'm like, what? Like, at first,
Oh,
like, who the fuck ratted on me? That's the first thing.
yeah, how
Like,
did they know?
I know. Like, you're not, these are school teachers. You're not, you're not that plugged in.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's had to scramble and finding babysitters and
Oh,
yeah, so whatever.
yeah. I've heard with kids, it's hard because schools will shut down, daycare won't operate. And then, if you don't work from home, or even if you do, it's like all of a sudden now you've got a kid to take care of during your day.
Well, I
It's like,
know.
oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's well, yeah, and first of all, like on that one hand, that cripples. Like if you have all of a sudden your kid can't be at school, like
Yeah.
at that age, you just can't leave home with a pack of matches. Like
Hey, kid, play with these. It's a real
yeah,
fire starter. Good luck.
I know, like there's that, and I mean, just what a crippling thing for the economy. Like all of a sudden, you're like, okay, and but then the other thing is like before I had this little bugger in my mind, I was like, well, this is great. I work from home, like I'll take care of him. We'll play and then you'll have a nap and I'll do programs.
How's that working out?
Yeah, then I'll feed him, then I'll do some calls, you know what I mean? Like maybe some, then reality hits it. It's just like, what the fuck? I can't do anything. It's like start an email. It's just, yeah, even with like, if I don't have a really good babysitter, like even then I'm every 10 minutes I'm going, hey, no, he's not allowed to do that. No.
It's like train the babysitter program.
Oh yeah. It's just, yeah, man. I mean, it's devastating. Like people don't have kids, not saying it. They just don't understand how that's completely turns the life upside down. And also a parent has to stay home. Like, holy fuck. I mean, like, man, how do you run a business? Like,
yeah, we don't have any kids. We don't even have a plant that's alive in our house, much less a pet.
yeah.
But I've got a lot of clients that have kids, and just the stuff they go through, and like you're even doing calls with them, and you see like all the shit happening in the background. You're just like, oh my god.
I know. It's always funny, but after a while, it's like this isn't funny. You turn your kid, you're like I'm losing it with you.
Then you got the two bulldogs running around.
I'm down to one.
Oh, what happened? Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all right. I'm over it. But it was actually quite dramatic. He had a heart attack while I was walking.
Oh, which one?
Maverick.
Oh,
so still got Goose. They went in their opposite order. But yeah, that was kind of dramatic. But I still got one.
yeah. And how old is he now?
The Goose. Well, Goose is a she.
And oh, she. Okay.
Yeah, she's 6 or 7, I think.
Okay.
And she's super fat. Like she's just fucking huge. And it's bad with the vet. Our vet does house calls. And at first, when she was coming over, she was a new vet, and she's like, "Okay, we're gonna work on her diet." And she brings out her scale, and she's like, "Yeah, she's really heavy. We're gonna bring this down." And after about 2 house calls, she doesn't even bring the fucking scale. She's like, "She's giving up on that." Meaning she's giving up on us, because we control her food. But
right.
Yeah.
I was talking to my sister once on the phone, and we all of a sudden got on the topic of diet pet food. And I didn't know that she was calling me from the grocery store looking at the diet pet food. We just happened to be talking about it. And I'm like, what a stupid idea. Like, what are the dogs running through the grocery store, like feeding themselves so they're going to get the diet food? And then I realized, I'm like, oh, it's the human who feels bad because now they can feed their dog more food and it's less calories. And she's like, yeah, I didn't want to tell you, I was standing there looking to buy the diet pet food for my dog. I'm going off on this rant about, this is the dumbest idea ever.
I don't. Well, it is scary. When you look at the food we feed pets, like some of it's just shit, especially.
Oh yeah.
Like apparently stuff from China has got like, of course, got like fucking plastic in it and Tupperware.
Oh.
I know. And for a lot of people, they just cook up meat, for that's probably the best thing.
Yeah. It's probably a good idea.
But you also want to have some carbs. I think it's usually probably depends on the breed, but it's like sweet potato, and sweet potato I know is good, not corn. I don't know. But the reason my dog's so freaking fat is because my kid, he's got his Eggo waffles watching SpongeBob, and then of course he's got ADHD like dad, so he Oh. And the dog moves in, you know, and she's totally onto it. She just doesn't like, just kind of sits there, just waits. She's like, all right. So you'll be a little meth head. You're gonna get bored. So.
Yeah, it is interesting how different breeds. My sister has a corgi, and we grew up with corgis, which I love. But they are so, and it sounds typical, but they're so food motivated. It's crazy, and you just wonder, like, how did they get? Is that like a byproduct of breeding, or is it just the fact that they're just like humans, where they're just wired for efficiency? And they figured out if they just sit next to you and stare at you and bark once in a while, they just get food and they don't even have to move. So it's like an efficiency thing. I don't know.
Well, you always hear out there say, well, we bred the aggression out of them. I'm like, holy shit. Wow. Okay. Can you do that to me? But yeah, no, I think there is a breed trait there. I mean, I think even my last two dogs, Maverick was not really into food.
Really?
Yeah, he'd be into food if Goose tried to eat his food. And he'd go,
okay.
Yeah. But if it was just there for the taking, he'd be like, man, you know, whereas I guess that's why, because she would eat everything. So I think that's why but
hence the weight difference.
Yeah, hence the yeah. And he's the one who fucking dies of a heart attack.
Oh, poor guy.
Well, yeah, I know.
But I've seen some people who have dogs where they just leave food out all day, and I'm like, the dog doesn't eat all of it. They're like, no, it just goes and eats whenever it wants, and then I'm like, wow.
Yeah, but and therein lies another thing. Like Goose does that, as big as she is. We put out her food, and she'll eat. We usually top it with like, you know, a little bit of meat or whatever, and she'll eat that. But then she'll leave the rest, like she's on some hunger strike. Because she knows like eventually, you know, we're gonna break down and like whatever, I'll be whatever. Like the gravy train's gonna kick in. She knows,
right?
You know, so I don't know. And she begs for it. So that's my life. Yeah.
Yeah. How are all the clients?
Fuck, that's busy. It's busy.
How many do you have now, if you don't mind saying? We already started recording a while ago anyway, so.
Are we recording?
Yeah. We can edit stuff if you want.
I'll just, I don't know. Anyway, people.
Some of my podcasts lately have just turned. I talked to Ryan LaCure, and it was just like random city of just like, hey, bro, what's going on? It's like, hey, you know this one thing in the gym? And I'm like, yeah. I figure the podcast is just more like people get to be a fly in the wall and see the weird ass conversations I have. So,
well, I appreciate that. I just hope I didn't say anything about. Well, no, nothing too political. Oh shit. Okay. I take it back. Whatever it was.
Whatever it was. Don't sue me.
Misquoted.
It was misquoted. It wasn't me.
Yeah, that's right. No, I'm averaging. I actually looked at this today. I'm at about 60 with 50 are really active.
Oh, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, it's it's a lot. So, but it's it's a lot. No. What am I trying to say? It's hell. I remember when I got really, I had a burst, you know, in the fall, and I was really really anxious about it because I'm like, I don't have time for this, and my wife already carries the lion's share, and I'm like, but I kind of told myself this isn't rocket science, you know.
Yeah.
I can do this, and I go, once this becomes my new normal, I'm like, then when it goes down again, as it always does, I'll have all this free time.
Right. How's that working out?
That's not working out.
I told myself that once too. It didn't work.
Oh, I know. But I got the added stress of like, you know, when you're really busy on your home-based job, and it's a weird. Okay, think of it like, because I had my father-in-law here for a long time, and you know, and all he sees is, oh, I'm up, you know, in my sweats, up in my office, you know, farting around
into a computer.
Yeah, farting around the computer, probably, you know, watching hockey or porn or hockey porn. I don't know. And you know, and I'm trying to tell him, I'm like, you know, I'm doing lots of work. It's just kind of weird. It's like, well, you know, it must be nice to be able to, you know, get up, you know, whenever you want. And I'm like, dude, when is the last time I got I get up at 4:30. I think that's what I want. Anyway, but yeah, man, yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm just trying to I've been able to streamline my systems a bit. I used to have an extra check-in process that was I really liked it, and I got more information, but it was just a redundancy. And it put a lot of onus on the clients. That's, in retrospect, I'm glad I got rid of it because it was a bit of an ask.
Do you do check-ins once a week then now, or what was the extra one?
Well, no, I do once a week check-in, but if they're recording their metrics and their food and everything, I don't really need them to do much like beyond
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But before I had I had them do that, but then I had them do an extra check-in, like just a Google Doc.
Mm.
And there's a lot of there's information that I was getting through the software already, but they're also asking just stuff like, how you doing? How you feeling?
Yeah.
And it was, and when most people were responding to it, they were giving me lots of info, like, oh, this happened in my life. And because that's my shtick, is I program around stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's not
Me
like
too.
yeah. So it's not like I'm fucking nosy, but it's just like, if you're,
Yeah. But if a big stressor happens, you want to
yeah,
know about it. And it's like,
yeah,
early on, like they'd miss 3 sessions and I was an idiot. And I'd be like, what's that going on? You missed 3 sessions. And I did that to someone once and she's like, yeah, my grandpa just died. I was like, oh shit, I'm a moron. I'm sorry. Maybe I should change my tact and be like, hey, just checking to see what's going on. Cause like, you don't know what's going on. It's online and in person, you can kind of see their face and how they
yeah.
move and you have a good idea, but online, you have no idea, and I'm like, I should probably just ask.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's yeah, that is the biggest thing that I miss. Like when you see someone, even if you only saw them once a week,
Yeah,
you just, no, obviously you check out their physique and their form and all, but you just see their face. Like they look
totally.
like, if someone is stressed and just kind of got that wide, they're
Like an ADD squirrel on meth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like this, probably you need something a little bit different. So, but no, it's going well. I mean, you know how it is though. It's always, I don't think much of coaching that is just telling people, okay, you gotta hit the targets better. You gotta hit the targets better. You know what I mean?
Try harder, bro.
Exactly. Track harder next week. Like,
right.
It's just like, and I, I'm always trying to like, well, how can I help you hit these targets, or should I change these targets? So I much prefer the later stages of coaching when they're hitting the targets and everything's kind of,
it's easier.
Well, yes, but yes and no. Like if someone's not hitting the targets, like, well, fuck, hit the targets and we'll talk,
Right.
My diet's not working. Well, how many days a week did you hit it? Well, I hit it once. Well, okay.
Once. Yeah, it's a good start.
But I got some people now, especially a couple of women, they're just studs. They're like 90% every day, and I'm like, geez, and when they stop making progress, that's when the job starts.
Yeah. Do you ever get worried when people are like hyper compliant? Like if I see people hitting like a new client hitting like 100%, like they never miss a training session, and I know they're not going to step on stage in their underwear in 4 weeks or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I know they just have like a more of a general goal, which is totally fine. I actually get worried now because I know that I'm afraid if a wheel comes off, they're like the blaster dust, like from Dave Tate. When they're on, they're on. And when they're off, they are so off. It's like, go, send a search party to pull them out of whatever cheesecake they fell into.
Well, no, like I jumped in there. I just, when it's too good, they're lying.
Yeah, that or they have no idea what they're doing and they think they're hitting everything.
Yeah, and they're just repeating.
Mail it in.
Every day is like, wow, you're big. Like I got this one guy. It's starting to insult my intelligence a little bit. Not that I have that much, but every day is like recording 2,400 calories every effing day, and I'm like going like,
what?
I'm like, how is that humanly possible?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I eat the same thing every day, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, anyway, but the variance would have been minimal anyway. But yeah, when someone is really hitting it and things aren't happening, like that's when it gets interesting. And it's like, okay. And they're reasonably, they're there's no bullshit in the stats.
Right.
Like that's when it's like, okay.
So what do you do then? Like, what do you have, like a kind of a order of operation or priority? Or I'm always curious what people do.
Well, it's always number one is just okay. Like they hate this. Okay, so let's repeat the week.
Yeah,
And
they
it's not
always
that
hate that.
well, I know, yes, it's usually partly because I'm lazy, but more it's like more often they do something, it gets easier. They feel, they stop thinking about it, and all of a sudden things start happening. So they're not thinking about it. Unless there's like a big deadline, then that stress is not going anywhere.
Yeah, it gets worse.
So yeah, first is always verify intake, and then it's just, it really depends. Like the worst is when it's someone who's just, there's no such thing as metabolic damage. There's definitely metabolisms that have no business being put through a diet again, especially females. Like they've just been chronic, just like shit just stops working. And
it's really wacky.
Yeah. And I get a little annoyed. Imagine this, I get annoyed by Facebook sometimes. Like
you're kidding. Me too.
Yeah.
I had to stop going on there for quite a while because it would just mess me up.
Well, you get these people saying, you're not in a calorie deficit. You're not in a calorie deficit. And 90% of the time, yeah, if they're not losing weight, they're not in it. That's
right.
Not all the fucking time, dude.
Yeah. But like, why then? Like, what's going on? Right. That's my thing. It's like, okay, I get it that if we lock people in a metabolic chamber and we control everything that goes in and goes out, yes, calories in, calories out works, but that's a closed environment. Like humans walk around doing stuff consciously and unconsciously in an open environment. And it's not that they're trying to lie to you. It's that there was some downregulation or some change that they have no conscious awareness of. So they're not trying to make your life hell. They're not trying to lie to you. They're not trying to do anything quote unquote wrong or bad. But at the same point, if stuff doesn't add up, then, something's got to be going on.
Yeah. I mean, and it's, that's when it gets difficult because, it might be, something legitimately just their metabolism is just damp. That's the word, he's dampened. Or just kind of depressed or suppressed, whatever.
Sad.
Or and this is more often the case, they've reached a level of burnout where they're just eating shit and they literally, it's subliminal. That's how I call it.
I don't know.
And and then of course there's there's medical anomalies that we don't even fucking consider. Like just maybe they have some, well, obviously stress, they're retaining a bunch of fluid. They're sleeping like shit, retaining a bunch of fluid. Man, I mean, like there's people who get like bizarre infections and stuff. I've had these things, and it's like there's everything that goes in the mix, and you can't just always. My point is, yes, it's usually they're not compliant with the diet or whatever, or they're just not in a deficit. Then the target has to change, but that's just not always. I think it's a little bit of hubris to think that's always the answer,
Yeah, and I mean, most of the time, I don't know what you're using, but I'm using like daily body weight.
Yeah,
and we know that body weight's going to fluctuate. I know it's not a marker for fat loss. I get it, but a measurement that they can get within a couple seconds, that's reliable, that's cheap, that we can get daily, it's a pretty good measurement.
Yeah, especially over time.
Yeah, especially over time, because I'm looking at trends over the week, over the month, over the year. But then you've got things like carbohydrate, changes. So glycogen changes, salt changes, fluid changes.
Well,
they went out and had Chinese last night. So they had like a spike of 3,000 milligrams of sodium that they don't normally have. They got super thirsty. So they freak out because they're up 3 pounds now. And yeah,
that's my first thing, especially with women. If, sometimes it's a bit of an ask because they hate the scale.
Yeah.
Or they have no business using the scale. That's the other, they've just had, try to convince them, look, you're going to figure out right away that this measurement is goofy. It doesn't, there's no way you're gaining that. That can't be all body fat. It's impossible.
Right.
You're not eating that much. And then most of them kind of get into it. And they're like, oh yeah, this is kind of stupid, and it loses its power. But, usually, no, I've had some interesting kids. Well, then there's the monthly for women, the monthly bill. That can be, that
can be a big swing, even in smaller females. I've seen in some people who are very sensitive. I had like a 120-pound female where she would routinely go up 3-4 pounds, like, and sometimes it'd be higher than that even,
Well, yeah, and sometimes the other thing is I always read these posts from guys saying, "Oh, with my female clients, I have them eat more in their luteal phase, or they change the training," and I'm just like, "Fuck, dude, don't." You do ask them how it works for them and work around it. Let them tell you. But yeah, like some get really, obviously, the chocolate cravings, and that affects intake. And I haven't really played with trading volume. I know Lyle McDonald's big on that. Play with the volume.
I'm not convinced by the data. And number two, like, I don't think I've ever had a client that's that dialed into a gnat's ass that's really going to matter. And I want to add that much more stress to their life. I just don't, maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't found someone yet where I think it's worth the added stress, I guess.
No, it's funny. Our mutual friend, Dr. Bryan Chung, when I mentioned that.
Tell me I said hi.
Yeah. When I mentioned people are doing that, I go, yeah, coaches are programming around their menstrual cycle. He's just like, what the fuck? He's like, who are these people? So, but I like things like if they know they're going to be, a lot of it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so they tell me, I'm always hungry these days. I'm like, okay.
But that's feedback. That makes sense to me.
Well, yeah. Let's work with it. Okay, let's have you eat a little bit more, and then at least then it's steeped in reality.
Yeah.
But fuck yeah, I forget. I read Lyle's book, of course, on it, but I just like, I'm not going to do this.
I had one of the craziest things. I had 2 crazy clients in the past where you're just like beating your head against the wall and you're going, what is going on? Like, you've gone down the list, you're tracking their steps. They're pretty good about tracking calories. Their sleep's good. Like, they don't have sleep apnea. I've ran into that a few times.
Oh, yeah.
One of them was on blood work. I had this, it was a female competitor. She was awesome to work with. We're looking at her blood work and I'm like, what the heck? So I sent it to a good buddy of mine. I keep on retainer, Dr. Tommy Wood. Shout out to him. I'm like, hey man, what's going on here? This seems wacky. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And he's like, is she a female cyclist on EPO? I'm like, that's kind of what I was thinking. And she's a power lifter. No, she's not on any drugs at all. Yeah. And we later figured out it was sleep apnea. She was getting so apneic, so low in oxygen at night that her body's like, oh shit, we need to bump up red blood cell count. And she was just chronically sleep deprived for years. So we got her sleep study. She ended up having a bunch of, ironically, couldn't afford me anymore because she had to have like dental surgery and her whole airway and everything like reformed. But she had massive sleep apnea. And so I was like, oh crap. But the interesting part is, like, if you'd asked her, she's like, I don't know. I don't really have anything going on. Like, without the blood work, I don't know if we would have seen it. And her doc is like, yeah, she's fine. I'm like, go back to your doctor and ask them about this measurement, this measurement, and this measurement. And they're like, well, it's a little high. Like, a little high. It's like crazy high. So again, you run into just, once you got that all started resolved, like her stress got better, HRV scores improved, like everything just started working again.
Yeah, it's interesting. Probably the thousands listening right now are thinking, this fucking idiot who's rambling. I've gotten a lot. What's the opposite of confident? I don't know. Humbled, I guess. Because,
that's because you actually work with live humans.
Well, yeah, that's true. But
compared to a lot of the coaches who profess stuff who've never worked with the human before, which is fine. Just don't tell me you're a coach then. I don't care.
Yeah, well, you just read lots,
Right. Just tell me you read lots. That's okay. You may have a valid opinion. I just don't lie to me.
Well, yeah, like I've made some, like, because I had a sleep apnea bad. And of course,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, especially, of course, with my wife who pointed it out and demanded it. And I got the study and it's confirmed. And I got the apparatus and
snorkel machine.
Hate it. I'm kind of off of it right now, but I'm going back on. Now that I'm back in the bed, I'm going back. I'm gonna bring it to the couch. but yeah, and I felt better. And then I started kind of, what's the word, evangelizing, or I don't know. Saying,
Yeah.
oh man, this shit works. And now a lot of people are like, I don't really notice it, and they're like, oh, I just, by losing weight, I cleared up my sleep apnea. And now I'm like,
Yeah, but that happens a lot of times, right?
yeah,
I mean, you have less pressure, you've got less weight being pushed on it. Like you can totally make a huge difference in some people with that.
yeah. So I kind of made the mistake of using my own personal feedback, which was probably heavily biased,
Yeah.
because I paid for the fucking thing, like, yeah, of course it worked. You know how much I spent for that? And I did that, pushing it onto people, but I mean, obviously there's science behind it. It's not voodoo, but so that's kind of a little bit egg on my face in that. And steps, I used to make fun of that, step counting.
Oh, I think that's one thing I actually got right early on. I had old school pedometers before people had watches and stuff. And I used to get so much shit for that.
Yeah, probably from
But I'm
me.
like, yeah, probably from you. Yeah. But I'm like, it's a cheap way to measure energy output. People are like, no, it doesn't matter. I'm like, yeah, because it's an unconsciously regulated thing. Like without a measurement, clients are not trying to lie to you. But right, you've gotten super lean. Like you see, Eric Helms was saying, he's like, yeah, when I get contest lean, he's like, I'm doing a lecture and I'm hanging on the board because I don't even want to support my weight anymore. It's like you get super lean and you start slashing people's calories. They just don't move. It's just, that's how your body works. Thinks you're trying to kill it.
Well, yeah. And I mean, the way I always, again, myself, great coaching. The way it worked for me is like, I would literally do, okay, I've been walking an hour a day, I'll go down an hour and a half, like that kind of shit. I just get the steps that way, just like completely sloppy, work for me in my little world. But, so I always would kind of, when I was getting into coaching, I made fun of it. I didn't make fun of it. I was just like, this is stupid. Just do more cardio.
Yeah.
But no, it makes, I will say it, you might argue with me on this. I think when it's very low and you look at their step count, you're like, holy shit, dude, you don't move much. And then you correct that, however way you do it, that moves the needle.
Oh, 100%.
But I'm not,
it's not linear.
Yeah, it's not like, let's go from 6,000 steps to 7,000, like that kind of thing. I mean, it works, but to me, it's not as, it's when they make that initial, like, holy shit, I'm a slug.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, probably all moves the needle, but that's what makes the big dramatic one,
Yeah. And then there's Ponzer stuff, right, about the constrained energy hypothesis that, once you get above 12 to 15,000 steps per day, going from 15,000 to 20,000 doesn't seem to make a big difference. And, that makes sense to me because I've had a few clients that just go batshit crazy and think, man, I'm at 15,000. I'm going to go to 20. And I'm just like, nah, I don't, the couple of times I did it, like, anecdotal, didn't see a huge response. Yeah. And they're like walking 2.5 hours a day. I'm like, you got to go to work. What are you doing?
I'm not a mailman.
Right.
But actually, it's something I stole from Luke Lehman, Muscle Nerds.
Oh, I love Luke. I was at his wedding a couple of years ago.
Asshole. Total asshole.
Yeah, he's a big prick. I wonder if he's listening to this. I'll send him this video.
That's great. How everyone, like, not everyone, how calorie average works so well for the week. Obviously, a step average for the week that works really well.
Yeah.
So he uses 50,000 for the week, which is 7,000 a day.
Yeah, it's probably about,
yeah. So I like that because then people with normal lives can look and go, oh man, I've been really sedentary. I'm gonna go walk lots over the weekend. And just those, and I think the sweetness to that, also to the calories, having them give that little bit of control is just it just lowers stress again. Because we're always staring at these fucking metrics. I didn't hit my step count. Oh, I didn't,
gets up at 3 a.m. to run around the block and goes back to bed,
Oh, I know. Like, get stressed and then, like, drinks 2 liters of pop. It's like, I don't know. You always have to put the person first and say, okay, how can I push these things and not stress you out? Make you feel like you're controlling things, but not things you're not supposed to control, or just not in, you can't really control all the outcomes or many of the outcomes. So I mean, that's where I find coaching is. It's just like knowing which lever to push, and then like, is this the right lever for this person? So I think that's kind of the challenge well, one of the challenges. Yeah.
Yeah. I found on step count, like if people hit 5 to 8,000, that's kind of like my first phase. Right.
Yeah.
If they measure, like when I was doing my PhD, I remember doing my early measurements. I don't even think I got 2,300 steps a day. This did not account training. This is for 3 days in a row. Because like I would wake up, I worked from home. I had clients that were online. My job was online. Like I didn't take a walk. I don't even think I went outside. I lifted in the garage. I didn't walk to the friggin' gym. It was like, oh my God, I'm a slug.
I know. Yeah. And then when all of a sudden you see that, you're like, oh Christ. Then you correct it. And then, provided the other things are in line, you'll get a wow. Yeah. So, but it is cool. I also like it. It's one of the few lifestyle-y things, if I can use that word, the soft Weight Watchers-y lifestyle-y things. This is really good. It's just useful, So
yeah. I had one client, she was a fitness competitor. I was looking at her steps and she was like pre-contest, like 4 weeks out, super lean. She was already lean before I worked with her. So it's not like I really did a whole lot, I can take credit for anything. All of a sudden I look and she's like, one day she hits like 17,000. I was like, whoa. I said, what happened? What's going on? And she's like, yeah, I forgot. And I put my Fitbit in the dryer. I was like, oh, got it.
I guess like, oh man. Well, then you get those questions like, okay, what if I'm on a piece of cardio equipment where I'm not really accumulating steps? And then it's like, well, what about you have with my husband or my wife, and they're just like, in the bedroom, how does that?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, 3 minutes. With me, it's 3 minents, man.
It's intense, though. I hear it's a rumor.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's good. Oh, yeah. Good. Just ask me.
I don't think we'll ever get anywhere time soon where energy export is going to be accurate, right? No, I mean, years ago when I was with Eat to Perform, we did this experiment, which I was okay to try. Yeah. Let's have people eat to what their Fitbit says, and I'm like, this is going to work for 40-50%, and the rest, it's going to be a disaster. And the people that are going to be a nightmare are the people who gain weight, and they are going to be so confused. That's exactly what happened, right? I mean, even indirect calorimetry, if you walk around with the thing plastered to your face all day, there's still a big enough margin of error that I don't think it's going to be all that useful. Like a couple studies, doubly labeled water, put people in a respiration chamber, metabolic chamber, whatever. Yeah, good for studies for a couple of days. Beyond that, like free living humans, like day to day, months over years, I just think we're so far from having that be accurate.
Yeah, I tell them just don't even look at it. It's garbage.
Yeah.
Cheap prediction equations and just, I mean, it's just noise, and I'm just, well, I guess that you can't really, like, can they even do a piece of cardio equipment that does that accurately? Because I think they're all just based on like equations based on, I think, on marathon runners. I read somewhere.
Yeah, treadmills are pretty horrible. Treadmills, like in the literature, are by far the worst.
Yeah.
If you have a name brand, like some of the Concept 2 rowers are relatively close because the distance and kind of the machine, so it has to be specific to the machine. But again, that can be different by the mechanical efficiency of the rower. Obviously, a 6'6", elite rower versus a 5'5" person who's never done it. Like, there's going to be a pretty big difference between those two. So again, you're back to just, I tell people, I'm like, if you want to log it from that machine, great, keep track of it so we can compare. But other than that, like even on rowing, I just have people charge average watts. It's like, I just want to know your output. For you, that's fine. If you go up, great, you're better. That's all I care about. I'm not trying to fit that accurately into some equation somewhere.
Yeah, I'll use it in that respect. Like, burn this many, and then just keep it consistent and up the end. But I don't use it as I don't think what the word is. Like, okay, we're gonna adjust your diet based upon like, no, I mean, it's interesting though. I mean, so much of the numbers, so much are just, this is more your department than mine, but they're just way too soft. Like, there's just way too, they're just not accurate enough. But I mean, if they're consistently inaccurate and over the totality of like a diet, it doesn't matter as much. I get that. That's why they're still useful with these, folks who are just put so much stock in what that label reads.
Yeah, I've had those people. I've had a couple of them more in the past, not so much now. And my little trick I do with them on vacation is like, okay, you're
Yeah.
going on vacation. Like, okay, just number one, try to eat like a normal human. Like, just get some protein in. Don't go
Yeah.
too, face down in the, banana pina coladas like for breakfast,
Yeah.
lunch, and dinner. And
Yeah.
get up in the morning, go for a walk. If you can do some exercise without stressing you out, great.
Yeah.
Sleep as much as humanly possible. Throw your Fitbit in the trash. Don't wear it.
Mhm.
And most of the ones who are just like hyper, like
Mhm.
numbers based, like the four of them I had in the past came back. Every one of them lost 1 to 4 pounds in a week on
Yeah.
vacation.
Yeah. No, it always, well, you have so many things like, yeah, they're going from like where you are or where I am to someplace hot.
Yeah, usually somewhere warm. Yeah.
Just that's there's so many, so you got to boost the metabolism and just you're on vacation, you're less stressed. I mean, they're just decompressing and that affects weight.
Yeah,
Obviously,
they sleep.
yeah. I know it's just, yeah, I guess as the more I do this, longer I do this, I'm not less sure, but I'm just less like, all right, I'm skeptical of everything. I don't get blown away in seminars anymore. Like, remember the first time you go to when you're 20 and you go to a strength seminar or a nutrition one, you're like, holy shit.
Oh yeah.
And now you're just like, okay, just don't fucking try to bullshit me,
Yeah. I remember
That's
the first time I got the Poliquin principles, and I
it.
was like, what
God,
was this, 93? God, I'm old, something like that.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember thinking, oh my God, there's something besides 3x10, right? Not knowing
Yeah,
that DeLorme discovered that 19, what, fucking
yeah,
48 or something. I'm like, oh, 10x3.
yeah.
This is insane.
Oh, I remember going to Wade Why share Apollo seminars, and I remember I'd come back just completely like this. I'm changing how I'm doing shit. I'm changing how I train. I'm changing how. But the worst is always stuff like the Swiss symposiums where you get like the panels of
Oh,
speakers.
yeah.
I'd come back with all these ideas, and I forget the last one I went to, but I just go, I'm like, okay, I still want to be bored.
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, but now I'm just a lot more humble when it's like I don't know everything, man, and like there's things going on, and metabolisms are goofy, and people are fucking strange, and there's so much machinery, and the way that stress affects everything, not just on like that's probably the biggest thing is the way it obviously it affects hunger and energy and cravings and everything, and it just affects the muscle building process and how they progress, and I don't know if it affects it does affect digestion, obviously.
Yes. Big time.
Now, does that affect like the actual absorption of calories? I don't know. Probably. That's how I
Probably.
Yeah, right now I'm like a fuck, probably.
Yeah.
So,
Do you measure HRV or any markers of stress then?
well, no, that's what I was going to jump in with you on. I look if they want to share it, I look at it, but I don't like, I don't run my business on it. I don't run it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think I talked to you a while ago about how
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're kind of like you're still using, but you kind of backed off a little bit. Or was
I
that
use it
correct?
on most people, but I'm not as adamant where you absolutely
Yeah.
have to do it. And I did that for a while just because I wanted it. I wanted people to know that's what I did. So it was part of the deal.
Oh,
Right
okay.
now, if on the clients I have now, probably 95% of them do it. Right. And the
Okay.
ones who don't are pretty advanced where I can kind of trust their feedback and I can look at their metrics. I've worked with them long enough to know what's going
Yeah.
on.
Mhm.
But even like people give me shit. They're like, you still do HRV every morning, you dumbass. Don't you know anything about your body? It's like 8.5 years later. I'm like, yeah, like 90% of the time I pretty much know, but there's just weird unconscious shit that happens that
Mhm.
it's happened enough to me and clients where I think it's useful because those are the times like the stuff doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, if I was in Costa Rica a while ago and my HRV was just like on a ski slope, just down.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's because of the stuff I did there. I got sick towards the end. I was going to be quarantined. I didn't know how long I was going to be
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
There's like so many factors. It's hard to know.
Mhm.
But knowing that it was going on. And then the second I got home, literally my HRV went up 21 points.
Yeah.
And so in hindsight, I think I probably got a little bit of a cold or something going on, tested
Uh-huh.
negative for COVID, ironically, so
Uh-huh.
PCR, even though I got a positive antigen and got stuck there.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I was subconsciously more worried about getting home. And the
Uh-huh.
second I was home, I'm like, okay, good. Everything's cool. We're all good.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think I would have picked that up otherwise.
Okay.
I would have just been like, I don't know. Stuff's weird. I can't figure it out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like that's where I see the utility in it. It's just like when things are going on in your life and you look, okay, how does this reflect on my HRV? So I think there's a ton of utility to that, but it's just, would I use that then, like in the reverse? Help me out here. What am I trying to, like, would I use it be prescriptive with,
Yes.
like when I wake up and say, okay, my HRV is low, I feel great, my HRV is low, fuck that, I ain't training. No, I mean, I think that's
Right.
insane, you know?
Yeah. So I think you have to use, again, the averages. And
Yeah.
then, so for example, like people are like, oh, but what if HRV is like good all the time? Do you do anything different? And I'm like, yeah, I push the shit out of their training volume
Yeah.
because they can handle it. If their HRV is high, especially let's say they're a power lifter, right? You don't need an HRV of 90 or 100 and a resting heart rate of 43, right?
Yeah.
You could probably give up some of that and get more training volume, push some higher intensity work. So in some people, I will push their training volume and chronically almost keep them there, and their HRV scores will be much worse, but not to the point where they still can't recover from the training.
Yeah.
And so I think that to me is where it's useful because you've worked with enough people. Like
Mm-hmm.
on paper, you can have two athletes where you're like, man, these two people are the same. And
Mm-hmm.
one of them, for whatever reason, just recovers faster than the other one. Like no drugs, like
Oh,
same
yeah.
thing, like everything is reported the same, right? At least as far as I know. Um, maybe the one's lying. I don't know.
No, that's never
Like,
happens.
yeah, never happens. Drugs never happens.
Yeah.
And I've seen this with intensity. Like I do this experiment once in a while where I had a natural bodybuilder, pretty high level guy. He was just getting the shit kicked out of him all the time. Like super diligent, super smart dude, finishing his PhD in the field, was coaching people. And so we did a little test. And when he would do like even a triple, like good form, not a grinder, like he would do that for like 3 sets, like his HRV would be tanked for 48 hours. But yet he could go to the gym and do 30 to 40,000 pounds of volume on mostly compound lifts, higher rep rate, and he could go back and train like 5 days a week. His HRV would be like almost the same. Now he was like a freak in terms of volume, I think, that he could handle and recover from, but high intensity stuff just would tank him for like 2 or 3 days. And I've seen the inverse on that too. I've seen like high volume stuff just
Yeah.
bury some people, but they could do like, high percentage of 90% of 1RM stuff, like at a ridiculously high rate with good form. And like 2 days later, be like, I'm good to go again. What?
Yeah. I mean, that's where I always go back to, showing my age. I go back to the training log, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it only tells your story. But,
But that's all the client cares about anyway.
I know. And I have no shame in asking. I go, well, let's go with the stuff we've done with you already. Like, this stuff that worked and you felt great on. We'll change it, but because that's what worked. We found what worked for you. That's all that matters. Like that training log that has, people. That's one good thing about all the online tracking is that people are being a little more methodical with that. But training log that has all that tells you. To me, that reflects what their lifestyle's like. Obviously they're, what so much beyond than just like the loading parameters. That's like, okay, what was going on in your life when that was kicking ass, when that program was working, and it just, I mean, I think that's the most powerful tool that you can use, like that the client can use, and that obviously the coach can refer to.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's been nice is I'm biased. I use True Coach now, so I can track all the volume and know everything clients are doing, and that's been super helpful. And I have little assessments we'll drop in there once in a while. But in the past, like trying to get photos of it and trying to get them to update a spreadsheet and all this other stuff, like you could do it, and there's definitely motivated people that would, but it's much easier now. Granted, I got my training journal on the other side of the computer. I still write everything down on pen and paper. I think I've got like all my original training journals for like way too long. I don't know what the hell I'm ever going to do with them, but
Sell them, man, sell them.
Sell them, yeah. No one's gonna want them.
I know, and obviously I have all my clients sell their, yeah, and it just makes such a huge difference. I never, I try to do, obviously stick with, not giving the same face all the time. And, but the populations I work with change. Now I'm looking at stuff like, the first thing is always, okay, when we're looking at your training, what's your life going to be like here? Okay.
Yeah.
And what are your other competing interests? That's kind of like the mother thing. I guess that's the new sport. If you get what I'm saying, like, okay, your life is gonna be like this now, like that's okay, that's gonna be the defining goal. And okay, how do I adjust the training to suit that? So yeah, it's so that I refer back to their previous programs for guidance in that regard. But I find even the seasons of the year, and the way that like it often is similar to what life is like, especially if they have kids and families and school and stuff like that. All that kind of factors into the program design.
Yeah, and I talked about Ryan on the podcast too, that
Yeah.
I think one of the mistakes I made in the past was I felt like if every 6 weeks I didn't completely change something, they would fire me and think that I was an idiot.
Yeah,
and like that was probably the biggest mistake I could have made, because a lot of times it was working. They weren't complaining. They had enough novelty. And so now I sometimes feel like I'm almost
you're making their life
drifted so far the other way. Like their programs tend to look very similar, but it right? It's different to look at a program on paper and you're like, shit, nothing changed. But then when you execute the program for a week, you're like, oh wow, I'm sore here. I wasn't sore there. That was a lot harder than I thought. Just changing a rep range makes a difference. Like once you've experienced it for a week, it does feel different enough, I think, for most people to keep them progressing. But I think I did way too much novelty to their detriment, unfortunately, like years ago when I started.
Yeah, I used to, and it's still I still have probably quite a few new clients who'll be like, okay, so I've been doing this program. When do I get my next one? And my answer is, I always feel like a dick. It's like, well, when this one stops working.
Yeah.
Now I literally say like, okay, everything feels good.
Yeah.
You're progressing and you want to change it. Okay. Like,
yeah.
So now my kind of thing is, I'll make a ton of changes at first. Like they're like, okay, I hate this, I hate that, this hurts, this, I don't have this, and okay, good. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now just focus on progress, more rep. One more, and then my line is, if we never have to change this and you just keep pushing the progress meter, you're send me $1 million. I just changed your life. Like this is like, one, obviously it never lasts forever, but that should be the goal, is just to work. Because the longer you work it and you're making progress, those are like the fucking gains that matter. Like, yeah. So, a little bit of novelty. Yeah, of course, like a vacation workout or whatever. Yeah. But, yeah. So that's kind of my shtick, is that I look at their life. Okay. It's tax season and you're super busy. You're an accountant. I'm not going to give you a 5-day a week. I'm going to give you a 3-day. And, then when you're out of that, okay, now I'll do a bit of a more, now I'll change the program a little bit more because you're in a different phase in life. Okay. And it's, 12 weeks till you go away, to go away with your family. So then, but you have this relatively uninterrupted time. Okay. We'll push the volume a bit, and then we'll just try to get to the sweet spot right away. You just work work in progress. And then the next big life change, that's when the program change. I just find that's, I don't know. It's just a more, for people who aren't competing in a sport or getting on stage. It's just, right. Yeah.
But most of them, like I even use HRV this way. So initially with HRV, I was like, if they're like a high level athlete, this is going to be great. Like, power lifters, I changed their deload from, 7 days to 14 days. And it was like amazing, because they were just never recovered the whole time. And I'm like, well, maybe I just want more data. So I'll just have everyone start doing HRV. And I thought, it's not going to be useful in everyone else. But what I found was people who were not really super competitive, it was all the lifestyle stuff that was like screwing them up.
Yeah.
And so their HRV would tank because of a lifestyle issue, where the higher lifters that had their lifestyle kind of in order to get to that, most of them, not all of them, was training volume. But for someone whose lifestyle is a trash bin fire, like the thing that they can probably change the fastest, it's going to save them and not, completely, bury their dick in
Yes.
the sand, is
Yeah.
their training.
Well, I know. It's so funny. That's another point of, I guess, hubris that just like, okay, we're gonna, oh, yeah, just just the programming to so you're maximizing progress, and meanwhile, their fucking life is,
Oh, it's
you
a
know,
disaster.
I know, and you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna manage your stress. I'm gonna take you from like, sets of fours, I bring you back up to eights because I want to manage your stress, whatever. It just, and meanwhile, they're dumpster fire life, and they're just, or they're not sleeping well, or I shouldn't say dumpster fire, that's a little over the top, but like even just like with COVID, man, like
Oh,
the, not like the drinking, like holy shit, like, my clients all sound like, not all my clients are drunks,
well, you're in
but
Canada. It's part of
yeah,
the
well,
lifestyle.
no, I'm in Canada. I'm a drunk, but no, no. I mean, it's just it's the amount of people who have like not a couple glasses of wine a night. That used to be the odd person. Now that's like, I don't know, seems to be the overwhelming majority. And granted, that's not drunk, but it's enough to completely, well, not completely screw things up, but it's enough to affect things. So
Yeah, and a lot of times I sound like a shill for HRV, but
you're
you'll find in their HRV. Like I've had some people where one drink they're fine, two
Mhm.
drinks just bam, it just tanks. And even like the type of alcohol matters, like the type of wine, where the wine is from. Like I used to think that like clear alcohol wasn't as bad, but then I found people who tequila would just completely tank them and vodka would be fine. And then the next client would be the inverse. I'm like, I don't know. It just seems to be so
Well,
variable from one to the next.
well, I know, and I always do a massive eye roll when guys, what kind, subtract the calories from carbs and fat and work in, and I'm like, you fucking idiot. That's not the point. It's like,
Work
it's,
in your 4 Budweisers at night.
well, now, yeah, you do the calorie hijink. That's great. But now, you're suppressing testosterone, but it's like, there's that, and there's sleep, and there's stress, and there's cravings, and there's fluid issues, and just can't express power as well, and obviously the mood and the next day, and it's always the other things associated with drinking, and if it's a social drinking, then
Oh
there's
yeah.
the eating, like it's everything else beyond the calories, that's why it's an issue. I mean, it's great that you can work it into the diet, bro, but that's not the reason why it's screwing everybody up.
Yeah, I used to be sneaky with clients I know, especially male clients in the past, who would go out on Friday night. This one guy was arguing with me, past client, is like, oh, but I need to know exactly how many calories those 3 beers are. I'm like, okay, so this is the third Friday in a row this has happened. Tell me
Yeah,
about your Friday night. And it always involved going out to the bar with his buddies till 1 in the morning,
yeah,
having 3 beers. And then eventually he broke down and said, well, we had half a pizza and then we had chicken
yeah,
wings. Then we had Doritos with cheese on them and everything else that went into it. I'm like, the 3 beers is probably like the least of your worries. And
yeah,
so then I started programming like high repetition squats like Saturday morning.
yeah,
And so I
yeah,
would
yeah,
say nothing about what he did Friday night. And I would just look to see if he trained Saturday morning or not.
yeah, yeah. Oh man, like a 7 a.m. leg workout, that'll
Woo.
that'll get you from quit booze, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, you're drinking, obviously those are calories, then you're eating shitty food, and then you don't sleep well, and you
Yeah.
don't recover well, and then your cravings the next day, and then you're probably moody, so then you get even more stress. It's just that's the low-hanging fruit, I guess, is the actual calories in the booze. It's everything else that's related to it.
Yeah. And then the inverse is like, again, years ago, I went through the phase probably in college where I drank more than I should, definitely. And
Yeah,
then I started training harder, got a job, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to quit drinking.
yeah,
Oh, it's bad. It drops testosterone. You read too many studies and it goes to your head.
yeah, yeah,
And I remember going to a powerlifting gym and seeing like
yeah,
these just huge like sides of beef with eyes, like doing strongman, like, pulling
yeah,
600 pounds, like for their warm ups and just crazy shit. And I went there on a Friday night and like, it was a private owned place and
yeah,
they would have beer when they were
yeah.
training. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, what's wrong? And then you find out like some of these people are like, top competitors in the state and in the US. And I'm like, okay, so maybe having a beer once in a while isn't as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be hindering their progress.
No, no, it's not exactly crashing their T levels. I mean,
No.
no, it's always, it's like everything, man. It's like it's everything wrapped into it, and how, how broad, like how it ripples into the rest of the life. It's one beer while you're doing. Yeah, come on. I mean, it's always like it's the multiples and everything related to it, and I find it's very easy to get caught in, oh, you did this one thing, oh, but it's everything else is kind of related.
Yeah. And do you think like kind of just your passion and your willingness to just, I call it like violent consistency, just
Mhm.
do the work like day in and day out, like just
Well,
trumps
yeah,
so much stuff. I mean, I did a grip competition last October at my buddy Adam Glass's place, and we went down there, and I always love lifting with those guys because it's just so humbling. Like the
yeah,
two top people for some of the lifts, I'm competing in their weight class. So of course, I got demolished, but
yeah, yeah,
we're in there like drinking and like they're arm wrestling, and one guy's showing another guy how to rip a deck of cards like half drunk at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And
yeah.
it
I
was
mean,
great. It was fun.
well,
But
yeah,
these
that's
guys lift like consistent, like almost literally every day, like high quality work.
yeah.
And that's what they've done for like friggin' decades.
Well, yeah, and like when it's when you lift with such skill and with such passion, and it's like such second nature, and then like that's so much different, than someone who's still, they just don't have that skill set yet,
Yeah.
it's or just that, I don't want to say passion because that sounds so frivolous, but it's just like that to develop the
It's like
kind
an unconscious
of
attention to detail, not in like an over the top maddening way where you're neurotic, but
no,
yet
no,
you're almost neurotic, but it's just part of what you do. There's not the stress that's associated with it. It just becomes the pattern that you execute over and over and over.
yeah, and you've done it with skill for so
Right.
long and at such a high level and so consistently, and you built this strength and this base that you can, now you've got all that, so now you can fuck around and find out, kind of thing. You can go and you can have a few beers while you lift, and you, of course, just will rip the weights and pull, because you've got that, you've earned that privilege, by putting
Yeah.
in all that hard consistent work. And I think so many people just they, you got to get there, you got to get there. And like, were they, the people who reach that level, were they monks the whole time to get there? No, but it's like consistency of effort, and getting that level of competency and strength, and just the ability to, like, even just to be on and express strength, and to, you can spot a confident lifter even in bodybuilding, just
Oh, sure.
just like the confidence, and you just get that through doing. Those people then can, like, oh man, I went on Friday, like they can do that, but man, not everyone, not most. It takes a long time.
Is
So
there any
yeah,
way to I don't want to say short circuit that, but I can't think of a way to speed up the process, right? Because I think I've had a discussion, same
yeah,
question to you, is that so we'll use a stereotypical male, right?
yeah,
23 years old, kind of made it through college, done some lifting, relatively somewhat successful. It seems to me it's almost impossible to talk him out of making some grave errors. Like
yeah.
they're just going to make errors. They're going to get injured at some point.
Mhm.
And I used to spend all this time trying to convince them to be like, hey, look at this guy and look at all the idiot stuff I did. And
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't seem to work. So now I'm just like, what's the smallest error or injury they can end up with that they'll learn from? So it's
yeah.
like, can you put the car in the ditch and not drive it off the cliff?
Well, yeah, because if I think I got quoted in, Lou Schuler. Lou Schuler quoted me an article of this, and I said to go, if I'd never lifted a barbell, I'd never been injured.
You never been what?
Like, if I've never lifted a
Oh,
barbell,
never been injured. Yeah.
yeah, never, if I've only lifted with cables and dumbbells, never, partly because I train a bit safe, but you just like how it's just, not saying that barbell lifts are dangerous, obviously,
Right.
but I'm just saying, like, that's over time. If you
There's
do
more
this
things
shit,
to go wrong. It's a higher risk.
Yeah. So, but if you train at a level where you're going to make progress and consistently, which you should be doing, in my opinion, you're gonna eventually you're gonna get injured. So, like, what is the, you're gonna get something. Usually, it's how it is. Usually, it's the shoulder or the elbow. If you're genetically gifted, though, and you got those joints that can just fucking take it, you can go really far. And you're not super stupid with your programming. You can go really far. But most people, eventually, you can get something. And then just learn not to work through pain. That's to me is just it. If anyone can learn anything, just don't work through pain. Do something else. Even something similar. You don't have to go fucking home, but just stop whatever you're doing and do something else. So it never gets better. Never gets better.
Yeah. I mean, rarely, I would estimate, I'd be curious in your thoughts, 90% of the people I know who got injured, there was some warning sign. Like you only hear of the things where it was a catastrophic injury that happened, and those things happen.
Yeah, people tear.
But I would say most of the time there was some warning sign. They just ignored it. I know almost all my injuries, especially non-contact stuff, it's like 100%.
Yeah, and especially Gen Pop, it's always shoulder. My shoulder's jacked up, and you look at their programming, and it's 3-4 to 1 pushing to pulling, and even with good programming though, and you start putting up heavy weights, and you don't even if you're avoiding like the behind the neck pressing, and you're doing everything even pretty smart from the get go. Once you start putting up big weights, even with safe exercises, there's only so much, depending on your genetics, there's only so much, something's going to start to grind down. And I just think if you stop at that point where it's like, get some treatment, you can really extend things, but most people just don't.
Do you find like upper back, like talking about ratio of pressing to pulling, do you find that most people can do a lot more back and pulling, especially upper back, than they think? Like I switched my programming 4 years ago, like where most people now, even general population, like if they're lifting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they're probably doing a back exercise for 1, 2, or 3 exercises Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I'm talking more upper back, not necessarily low back.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It definitely, quite honestly, you can never row too much. Well, you can't.
Right.
Like it's just,
I find it's like almost everyone has that capacity, and it just seems like, knock on wood, I've had luckily very few shoulder injuries, and I don't know if it's related to that or I just got lucky or what, but
yeah, like if that's why, like when I program now, I program safe for other people. I'm saying, like, I program safe out of the gate. Like, yeah, we avoid that. Like, just why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't, if I got somebody who has a body composition goal, like not a strength goal, like, why wouldn't I rely more on dumbbells? Like, why wouldn't I? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like it's unless they really like, and even then I'll talk them out of it if they love barbell bench that much. Yeah. So I mean, but I think the ratios, it's a little bit overstated. There's it depends on the person, and depends on
sure.
But yeah, I mean, if you build a program around rowing, you're not going to you're going to have a much more balanced person typically.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion now that I think the one arm dumbbell row from a split stance where you let your shoulder go all the way down safely, you build up to that progression over time. Yeah. If you can pull some pretty heavy weights for high reps in that position where you're stabilizing yourself without pain, I just feel that's just like such an underrated exercise for almost like everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I probably have 100 rowing variations. I mean, I guess you can get elbow issues, of course, but you can
get some overuse stuff. I agree.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's such a blanket recommendation that actually works.
Yeah. There's very few of those.
Yeah. No, that's but no, it is interesting. Just I don't think any lifts, well, there's a handful of lifts that are inherently bad, but they're, the most, there's some that are just like, I just don't see the point to connect the goal. Like if you have access to heavy dumbbells and you're in this for the long run, and again, you just want to look good and want to look jacked, like why wouldn't you chase, and not even just heavier weights, like just chase repetitions on dumbbell pressing, like do that.
What kind of pressing? Like you're talking bench press, seated press? Like what are some
yeah,
of your
or like
favorites?
yeah, like I like a like kind of a medium incline, semi like neutral grip dumbbell press. I like that. Vary the incline depending on the person. And like to me, that's my favorite, probably chest lift or pressing lift. Um, but of course, flat's great too. But obviously with the neutral grip or semi-supinated, I mean, it's just foolproof programming. Like, it's very hard to get injured doing that. I mean, I'm sure somebody will get injured, but I don't know.
Do you find like using like a 15, 30-degree incline? I actually like a 15-degree incline, but that's just my bias.
I like whatever they haven't done in a while.
Yeah, variety.
I just that's like such an easy lever to push, and just like, okay, they're doing the exercise, they're comfortable. I gotta change something. Okay, let's do this. Like that's one of my favorite kind of subtle progressions, stuff like that. Not a lot direct over the head. Well, maybe not really. Like even I don't do much of that, and never the barbell. But I do like a Viking press with a landmine. That is a good
dude. That is awesome.
That is probably my favorite old man shoulder. If someone has got a shoulder press, that's a good one. Yeah.
Do you do it with the landmine on the floor, or do you use like the little pipe attachment to bring the pivot point up higher?
No, landmine on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've done both, and I actually like, if you can get access to it, there's a little pivot pipe where you can put it on the side and then put the pivot point almost like nipple high or chest high. And so if you have long arms like I do, then to me that feels like it's a little bit better. But yeah, either version I think is, I was surprised. Like I got a Viking handle probably 3 years ago, and I was like, damn, I should have bought this like way sooner than what I did.
Well, and why I like it is I swear, and again, this is just me, but I swear it repaired my shoulder.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like it just, not that it was ever that bad. Well, I got some arthritis in there and some scar tissue and many hours of ART on it. And I haven't had a session ART in God knows how long. Well, not for that. Other parts, sure. Shoulders are great, man. But no, and I like doing them with like kind of like hypertrophy clusters, like 6 sets of 6 with 10-second rest. Man, that's to me, that's fun programming. So because I can still get my meathead on, because it's a Viking press. It's fucking cool.
Yeah. It's the name Viking press. How can it not be cool?
And it's you get some. Well, the weights aren't that big, but it's that's a great lift.
Any other favorite lifts?
For no, like I keep giving you these old man lifts, like neutral grip dumbbell pressing, and I think everyone, I love old man lifts because they're old man for a reason. They're safe. Like that. Any, like we mentioned rowing. I really like just variations of the lat pull down, and
like one arm, two arm, different handles.
Yeah, one arm and standing one arm row, cable row, against supporting split stance. And again, it affords some variety because you can just change the height of the pulley. Those are some favorites. But my favorite more, like, to be honest, is once I have my favorites that everyone does like that, but I like more now to play with, again, I mentioned like different forms of cluster training.
So how do you define cluster training for people who may not have heard that term before?
Okay, well, there's strength clusters.
There's different forms, so.
Yeah, like there's the old Polkin, like I forget the exact name, Polkin clusters, like, sets of 1 with, 5 seconds rest in between. You do 5 sets of 5 of that. That's one cluster. There's the threes, I forget what they're called. Those are we do 3 reps, wait 5 seconds, do 3 more reps. With, I think it's about your 5 RM weight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, but the one I like is like 6 by 6. So use about your 10 to 12 RM. Do 6 reps, rest 10 seconds. Do 6 reps, rest 10 seconds. You do that 6 times.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay. So it's intensive, and it's kind of like Rhonda.
Eight by eight, right?
Yeah, well, but as you can see, things start to blend together.
Yeah, I know.
Um, you know, Again, then there's Scott Stevens. He had muscle rounds, which is 6x4.
Yeah.
And they're all variations of the same thing. And it's just like it's a reasonably heavy load. Take it to, if you're using a 10 to 12 RM and you take it to 6 reps, I mean, you got a lot left in the tank. But as these mini sets accumulate,
you get the fatigue that accumulates.
Exactly. So you get to use kind of baby weights, so they're safe, not baby,
Yeah, lower weights.
But you push provided your weight selection is good, and you figure that out relatively quickly. You push into the red, usually in that last set, and then when all of a sudden when you're unsuccessful, let's say you only did, you did 6x6 for 4 times. No, excuse me, that makes no sense. You did 6 reps for 4 sets.
You only got 4 on your last set, you're saying?
Yeah. Let me make that easier. So let's say you're unsuccessful on your last. You only got 4 reps on your last 2 sets.
Got it.
You went 6, 6, 6, 6, then 4, 4. You shit the bed. Now next week. Okay, what my goal is. I want to see if I can get 6x6. I'm sorry. I know I came out terribly messy there.
Got it.
But see, that's when you reach that point. It takes a couple workouts to get there, but then you're like, okay, now I got this carrot that I'm chasing. That's very easy to visualize, and it's like, and then you get to that. You're successful. You add a little bit of weight, and you'll probably drop back down to maybe you get 6 reps the first 3 sets, and then keep progressing. It's really fun. Again, you have to get to that. If your weight selection isn't great, be a bit of trial and error to get there, but then it is fun, easy to chase, and it fucking kicks your ass too.
I like that. I'm gonna have to try that out.
Yeah, it's great. So hopefully I explained that reasonably well, because like in the muscle round way is 6 sets of 4.
Okay.
But I find going up to 6 was a little bit better. Now maybe that's just with me and my clients, but just a little bit, just I don't know, just accumulate a little bit more volume. But
yeah, well, blame Scott. He's a crazy bastard.
Yeah.
I love Scott.
Yeah. I mean, and, he probably didn't. I mean, no, he didn't invent cluster training either. I think that was around in the 50s or.
I'm trying to think of who was the first person who did cluster training, and I don't know, to be honest.
I learned it from Paul Quinn, but he said he didn't invent it. He said it's right. Soviets. So who the fuck knows? But it's like
Soviets did almost everything. So we'll just say it's Soviets.
Yeah, it's gonna take that, just accumulating. I don't know how you explain it. It's taking like I said, it's taking it for a submax. How would you explain it? If you're doing.
So I view it like, I think of everything as percentage of weight. So weight, right? Percentage of 1 RM, density or volume. Yeah. So to me, like how you described a cluster set is a way, since you fixed the rest period and your volume is open-ended. Yeah. So your density is going to be almost the same, so to speak. Yeah. So your variable is trying to add reps. Yeah. Right. So a lot of stuff I do is almost the inverse of that. Like I'll say, okay, do a dumbbell bench press, 6 to 8 rep range for heavy, and then do 4 sets. And then I'll leave the rest period open-ended. Yeah. Meaning that as you get to between set 3 and 4, you may rest 3 or 4 minutes, where between set 1 and 2, you're only resting 1 minute. So I'm speccing the volume, but I'm leaving density and time as an open-ended variable.
Yeah. So often if I have someone with 2 exposures a week, I'll do the muscle rep, like the density type work on the back end, the cluster, and on the front end, I'll do stuff like, depending on them, I might do, more like rest pause work, sure. Or I'll do like kind of like the patient lifters work where, like a spins of 5x5 and where the rest is open and it's just chasing that other variable. Yeah. I just like stuff that's easy, easy for people to visualize and have a goal, so.
Yeah, makes sense. 5x5, Bill Starr, right? So old school again.
Yeah, exactly.
He probably stole it from someone else, but
or just rest pause work. Just get something completely different. I think it's sometimes it's nice to separate things into training blocks, but I don't know. I kind of like having multiple things in the same program. It just obviously it can be just a nice little relief mentally. Like if you have week after week of stuff, especially if it's stuff like rest pause work, that will just run you down. It's fun as hell, but when it stops working, it becomes a grind. So I kind of find if you have separate, don't you do less of it, and you back end it with something else, it's a totally different exposure. You can kind of just run it longer, which is always my goal. I just want to run this shit longer.
Yeah, that's why I use a lot more for strength training in general. I use a lot more complete rest, and then I use a lot of volume progressions and sometimes density, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll alternate like a week of volume and then density. And then if it looks like they're not progressing as well, I'll do density again and then volume. Or if someone like my buddy, you probably know Sam Pogue, like he never did much density training. So like most of his work was all just aerobic stuff, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and then a lot of density stuff. And he did great, right? Yeah. Just because historically he's never really done that, and his aerobic system just needed some better development.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like a lot of it, I think, is just, hey, what haven't you done? Maybe we should try that. And if it'll get you to the goal that you want to get, that's probably the faster way to go.
Well, yeah. And at a certain point, an aerobic base is less of an option and more of a requirement,
Oh, 100%.
Like it's just, people got to put in that work,
Do you do like aerobic testing at all? I know you work with mostly general pop and more like kind of the strength training, hypertrophy, body comp, but do you look at any VO2 max or aerobics, or do you have any markers of something they should be at a certain level before you increase volume?
No, not for what I do for my market. Again, I'm a body composition guy, but I just like to get people, if they're not doing any of it, especially if they're, you want to just build up that aerobic base. So I just use really big, like starts off with like just, 30 minutes at, 120 to 140, just get them successfully doing that. And do I progress it? It really just depends, it depends on the goal. So like with my people, I just try to, include is what they need. I always give them what they need. And they, especially if someone's stressed out, they don't have a ton of time, I won't give them, these 6 day a week program. Will give them maybe 2 or 3 days a week, but quite a bit of aerobic exercise, and just increase it, maybe like something simple, like an extra 5 minutes a week.
Yeah.
Other people, I'll just kind of keep it fixed because there's only so much shit I can fit in,
Yeah.
So that's always my underlying thing. So, but what I don't do is, or rarely do, is just like, here's your 6 day a week program and completely ignore other fitness qualities. Unless those are clearly well established,
Sure.
I got, some young people that I just want to get big, man. I'm like, okay, we're not going to be doing much. We're not going to do much cardio. But for the average person, I mean, I'd like to typically probably not even do a ton of strength training at first, maybe 2 or 3 days, and have the balance doing as much kind of steady state cardio as their life can afford. But in terms of like chasing VO2 max, like, no, I don't really do that.
And do you program their steady state cardio on a different day than weight training, or do you have any qualms about putting them back to back, or any preference?
When they'll do it.
When they'll do it, yeah. That's obviously the biggest one.
When they'll do it. Yeah, I mean, I with steady state, I really don't think it matters that much. Yeah, once you start doing like aerobic intervals and stuff like that, then it's a little bit different. Then I'd prefer to do that not that often, and ideally on the same day as a leg day.
Oh, interesting. You do it after then, I assume.
It depends how much time I got. If they can separate it, that's great.
Yeah.
Do 4 to 6 hours in between, but typically I do it after the leg day. But I just don't. Here's another thing. That's another thing. I just don't. I used to be the hit guy, or not. Everyone says they're doing hit. They're not doing hit.
Oh, Tabata's everything. Tabata preacher curls with pink dumbbells on a Bosu ball. Let's go.
It's even like, well, yeah, that's it. That's ridiculous. Tabata curls. But it's like people say, oh, then I do my hit cardio. I'm like, you're not really doing hit. But
yeah, for 40 minutes.
Yeah, you're doing 40 minutes of fucking. Yeah, bro, you're doing intervals. Still hard.
Yeah.
No, I used to No, I used to program a lot of intervals, no steady state cardio because that makes you fat. No. Now I do rarely, because I just think that that digs such a hole, and it's not any better for fat loss in my estimation. Yeah, it's faster, but like it's a faster workout. I mean, but it's just much prefer just steady state cardio. Usually push the time to a certain point, and then kind of push the effort in that window. How much? Again, as much as they can, as much as they need.
Yeah.
So
I think people underestimate how like high quality, high intensity interval training. I think people underestimate just how freaking brutal that is and how developed you have to be in order to do that repeatedly and maintain the quality of output.
Well, yeah, like I would never put that in somebody's program right away. Like if I'm gonna tick the cardio, less again, depends what they show up like, but
right.
Yeah, like they're gonna get a walk,
Yeah.
And that solves a ton of fucking problems, because especially if they're stressed, if I can get them just walking outside, like that can be their cardio. I'll work on the diet and the strength training more often than, but if they need more, it's more of that, like then we'll do this basic steady state cardio. I guess I'll occasionally put in aerobic intervals on a light, but frankly, I don't see the need. I just think it causes more problems, that's something else can fix. Like I just don't see why you would do that. You get better aerobic adaptations, you get better shape, but it's such a thing. You want to play that card sparingly. Like maybe after 8 to 12 weeks of a lot of good steady state cardio, then you start to creep into the other way, like maybe one aerobic interval session, maybe up to two, and while concurrently lowering steady state. But then you have to also look at the goal of the weight training. Like if you're having a lot of leg days, where are you putting these? Like you got to be careful where you put them. Like I like to do them on the leg days. And now if you have 2 leg days a week, okay, now, like I say, everything writes a check, and that one writes a really big one.
Yeah, I've gotten, I think, better at programming it. Like for some people, I may literally start with, at the end of their leg day or hybrid day, like get on a rower and I'll spec at, what wattage I want them to go for 30 seconds. And then I'll leave the rest period open.
Oh, yeah.
And then go again.
Yeah, no, I should add, I'm talking like running. I'm talking like treadmill sprints. Oh yeah, on a rower. Okay.
Oh, I got it. So you're just talking about sprinting, like running. Got it.
Yeah, or even bike sprints. Rower, I'll put that. I use that a lot as a finisher, actually.
Yeah,
I think it's a great upper body finisher. Yeah, that's what I'll sneak in a lot earlier, because I find it's people like it. It's fast. It's effective. It's easy to track. Do
you think it's because there's less impact that you can get away with a little more volume? That's kind of what I found.
Yeah. No, I should have clarified that. When I say intervals, I mean like,
got it.
Yeah. Or bike sprints,
Mm-hmm.
The details matter.
Yeah. And I even start people at like 2 or 3 intervals, and they look at it and they're like, what? This is insane. But to read, and I'll say, okay, you can only deviate usually 5 to 10% off your max. Mm-hmm. Right. So if you rested 4 minutes and you can't repeat within 10% of your max, like you're done with intervals, like because you can't get any higher quality work. And now all I'm going to do is just, burn your recovery for probably not a better adaptation. And then I got to take away something else later because, you only got X amount of recovery you can use.
Well, yeah. And I just think with steady state work too, like, you just get so much. I mean, it does more for someone who comes to me, and that like, I just get more bang out of that buck. Like,
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Like you get it's the restorative factor, and, anyway, I don't know.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. I just have 2 last questions. One of them is John Brady being a pain in the ass, or is he still okay?
John
I just love giving John shit. He'll probably never hear this anyway. So
no, he probably Got 4 kids. He's busy. No, he's great, man. He's great.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, he's it's so fun because he sure as hell doesn't need me. So he sure as hell doesn't need me. So I enjoy that. I consider it a great privilege to do his programs. And it's fun because again, I know he can do it himself quite well. And so we can kind of work off each other. And but again, is what's fun about programming him because he is such an accomplished lifter. Great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, great bodybuilder. And so now it's more like programming around, he's got the 4 kids and he's living in different places and stuff like that, different gym environments. So that's what I find the most fun about it, is because it's not like I'm sitting there going, okay, how do I work with this really good athlete? How do I make him better? It's like, okay, how do I work with this life and this concept? Because I know he's got the requisite skill set to push it. And
yeah.
I don't have to. So he's doing good. He's probably he works harder than he probably he runs himself down pretty fast. It's funny. It's interesting. His tolerance, he goes into the red pretty easy.
Yeah, and I know he stopped doing the podcast for a while too, just because of time investments and everything else too. So it's been interesting to watch because on paper people are like, wow, he's sold precision nutrition, like he doesn't have to work another day in his life. But I think if you have the skill set and drive of someone who's accomplished that with business partners, you're not just going to retire and sip Mai Tais on the beach all day. You probably just don't have that personality. And so I think it's been interesting to watch him spend more time with his kids, grow up, have a family, and just all the other things he's able to do now. So it's been a cool journey to watch, at least from the outside.
Oh yeah. But it's just but I guess it's interesting. You can see that drive in his training because
sure.
Because especially the rest pause work, like he hammers it, and then all of a sudden he's like, I need a deload. That's not saying that he's weak. It's just that and he's in his 40s now, closer to 50. It's like, dude, okay, I get it.
Yeah, and sometimes I think having someone like you, the more advanced athletes I have, like a lot of times I spend more time just pulling them back than I do pushing them. It's like, hey man, your HRV has been red 2 days. Like, what's going on? Like, let's drop your volume. Let's drop in an aerobic day. Let's, make sure you don't blow both the tires at once.
Yeah. Yeah. He's good that way. He knows his biofeedback pretty well. So yeah. All right. Yeah. That's
nice. And then where can people find more about you if they want to go to your website? I know you've got a wonderful newsletter, and you're one of the rare newsletters that I actually still enjoy reading, because I run a newsletter and I don't like reading a lot of other people's newsletters because I don't think they're very good, but I enjoy reading yours all the time, which is great.
I just gotta get back to, my frequency isn't quick. I'm one every other week, but website is bryankrahn.com, BRYANKRAHN. And as people might probably guess, I don't really have a system. I just kind of try to do what works. So, yeah.
And that's great. And I really enjoy your writing. And also when I wrote articles for Team Egg, when you edited them, that it was great because I would get them back and I'm just like, you have the thing where you send something in, you're like, that was pretty good. And like either you or Lou would edit them and they come back and you're like, fuck, I sent like a shitty thing. And this sounds so much better, but it still sounds like me. How do they do that?
Oh God. That burns you out.
That's a hard skill to learn. That's impressive.
Well, I mean, it's when you correct enough really bad writing after a while, you're just like, you don't even want to read anything anymore. You're just like, fuck. Yeah. But yeah, you can find me there.
Cool. Awesome. Right. Well, thank you so much for all your time today and sharing all your knowledge. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Really appreciate it. A huge thanks to Bryan for his time. Great to talk to him again. As I mentioned in the podcast, I haven't been able to see him in person for a while due to COVID and traveling and him being up in Canada and having a kid and everything else that's going on now. But hopefully we'll be able to see him in person again. Big thanks to him for sharing all of his wisdom I've always enjoyed his writing and just his thought process as someone who's been coaching people for literally a long period of time. And it's always fun to compare notes and see if you're seeing similar trends and get good thoughts from him. So be sure to check out his stuff. Highly also recommend his newsletter, which is a great read. If you want more information on nutrition and recovery, check out the Flex Diet Cert, flexdiet.com, flexdiet.com, and go to the Get on the Wait list in the upper right-hand corner or on the main page there. You'll be able to find it, and we will let you know the next time that it is open. You also get exclusive content too. You can contact me directly through the newsletter. It's going to be the best way to get a hold of me. Once you're on there, just hit reply, change the title to Add Action. Anything you want to see on the podcast, please let me know. So as of now, those are the only sponsors. Obviously, I'm the one who created the Flex Diet Cert. Maybe we'll have other sponsors in the future, but for this time being, I've turned down all other sponsors because I didn't think it was a good fit at all. And I'm not going to take somebody's money for stuff I don't believe in. So go to flexdiet.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it around. Hit subscribe. Leave us whatever stars you feel is appropriate. Leave us some comments. Greatly appreciate it. That always helps to keep it going. And like I said, anything you want to see, drop me a note through the newsletter. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. Really appreciate it. And we will talk to you again next week.